Assalamu alaikum. This is the first video I've ever made in my life, and it will be the beginning of the journey, inshallah. Starting with the basics of human genetics, and before that, we're gonna go through the cell cycle to understand some information that will help us in the future to understand the genetics. So, in this video, we're gonna take the cell cycle, particularly the interface. Let's get started. The cell cycle, it is the sequence of events through which cell growth, DNA replication, and cell division occur. It involves two phases. The first one is the interphase, the growth 1 phase, which is composed of growth 1 phase, synthesis phase, growth 2 phase. And this part is gonna be our topic in this video. The mitosis is composed of prophase, prometaphase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. And this topic is gonna be in a separate video later. Starting with the growth 1 phase. It needs hours to months. And all of these occur in this phase, starting with the synthesis of RNA. Why RNA? Because we need to translate some codes or genetic codes to synthesize proteins needed for mitosis as mitotic spindle. We also need some cell organelles as centrosome. Growth 1 phase occurs after mitosis, and there is one chromatid present per chromosome. Why 1? Because we haven't entered S phase, which is responsible for the replication and duplication of the DNA. So we only have a single one chromatid. The cell grows. Nucleotide excision repair takes place here. What does it mean? It means when there is any damage or problem to the basis of the DNA, the growth 1 checkpoint is gonna repair them by and replace them with the normal and right basis. And here we can see the growth 1 checkpoint. It checks if the DNA damage. It also checks if there is any insufficiency in the substances needed for division or of the cell. Moving on to the next one, which is the S phase. It stands for synthesis, and it needs 8 hours. The DNA replication takes place here and result in 2 sister chromatids per chromosome. So, when someone asks you the chromatid is duplicated or is single in S phase, the answer is gonna be is duplicated, because here, as we can see in our notes, the DNA replication is exclusively in S phase, and it doesn't take any place in any other phases. Synthesis of proteins required for DNA packaging as histones. Histones are very specialized, important protein needed for coiling and packaging the DNA during chromatin concentration. Most mismatch repair takes place here. That means when there is or when a base of DNA is not connected to the right one, to the corresponding one, it must be repaired in this phase. For example, if the cytosine is connected to thymine, not to guanosine, it must be corrected before moving to the next one. Here we have clinical information. The chemotherapy inhibits the replication of the cells of the bodies, and that results in 2 outcomes, good and bad. Starting with the good news, that leads to kill the cancer cells by stopping the replication and duplication of the DNA. So the cancer is gonna regress, and that's good for the prognosis of the patient. The chemotherapy also inhibits the replication of the normal cells, mostly those that replicate rapidly, as the labile cells. The labile cells, those cells which are actively, continuously divide in a rapid pattern. So, when a patient with malignancy come to you and he's taking chemotherapy and complaining of hair loss and diarrhea, think about the chemotherapy, not the malignancy, because some antibiotics or the chemotherapy stop or inhibit the replication, not the cancer, not the malignancy. And those complications or those symptoms are complications of the chemotherapy, not the malignancy. Growth 2 needs 2 to 5 hours, and here the proteins needed for mitosis are increased. Why? Because the next step or the next phase is gonna be the mitosis. The repair of DNA replication errors takes place here in growth 2 checkpoint before entering mitosis. So the growth 2 checkpoint is gonna check if the DNA is complete or not. If it is complete, the cell can be allowed to move to the next phase, which is the mitosis. If it is not, the cell will be arrested and the apoptosis process is gonna start. So the cell is gonna be dead. The next one is the mitosis. The mitosis is gonna be explained in another separate video, but here we should take a look at it. It needs 1 hour and it is the shortest one. It is the final phase following the DNA replication. Lastly, the growth 0 or G0. It is the resting phase. When a cell exits from growth 1, it enters into growth 0 if it is differentiated and if it has specific functions and if it is no longer dividing. However, some cells re-enter growth 1 when stimulated. To make this concept or this piece of information clear or more clear, we're gonna divide our cells into 3 types of cells according to the division of the cell. The first one is the permanent cells, those cells which stay here and are no longer undergoing division. They have a specific function and they are differentiated, such as neural cells, cardiac muscles, skeletal muscles. And unfortunately, those cells or these cells, if you have any damage or injury to them, they're gonna, or our body is gonna replace them with fibrosis because they cannot undergo division anymore. The second one is the stable cells. The stable cells, those cells which most of the time enters the growth 0. However, they may enter growth 1 if they stimulated by any stimulators. For example, a patient with hepatectomy, his hepatocyte increase their proliferation and their DNA replication and duplication to replace and to compensate the loss of the liver. And they also called the quiescent cells. Quiescent cells. The labile cells are those cells who or which are actively continuously divide and they never enter this phase, the 0 or the growth 0 phase. Why? Because they always divide and they're sensitive to chemotherapy and some antibiotics. So when a patient have to take some chemotherapy or some antibiotics that stop or inhibit the replication of the cells, the normal cells, the labile cells will be the first or the most affected cells in the body. So they're complaining they will complain from hair loss, diarrhea, and anemia, and maybe skin disorders. This is the cell cycle, and I hope you get a lot of information, and subscribe to our channel to come up with the following videos. Thank you.